Hey everyone there at BiggerPockets. My name is Brandon Turner, co-host of the BiggerPockets Podcast. And today I wanted to put together this video to walk through the idea of how to get funding on your deals. Look, I know that it can be tough sometimes to get a bank to say yes to you. I've experienced a ton of that in my life where I go to the bank to get a loan and the banker just says no after no after no. I just get lots of no's. And that can be really hard to build a real estate portfolio when all you do is hear no's over and over and over. So today we're talking about the 7 steps that you need to get lenders to fund your real estate deals. So you hear a yes instead of a no. And in kind of a weird way, I could even say that this is almost like a guarantee. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you that you're going to get a yes, but what I mean by that is a bank wants to lend money. They're in the business of lending money. That's how they make money, is by lending money. Therefore, they want to do it. They want to lend the money out. So you just have to be able to crack their code. In other words, it's like a combination. That's why I got a kind of a combination picture here. If you get the right combination in, the safe is going to open up and you'll have unlimited funding. You'll never have a problem. But you've got to get the combination right. So what we're talking about today is the combination. How do you open that correctly? So I'm going to give you a lot of kind of tools, tips, some numbers, some just like, things that every investor should know, like debt to income, loan to value, all those things. So by the end of this little video here, you will be an expert on how to get a loan approved at any bank, credit union, or a mortgage company. So that's what we're talking about today, and I'm glad you guys are here. Now, normally I do these videos once a week. I do a live version of sort of what this is every week at BiggerPockets on Wednesdays. It's called the Wednesday webinar. That's a terrible name, but whatever. We'll call it that today. The Wednesday webinar, because I do them live every Wednesday. And so this is very similar to what I do on Wednesdays. So if you enjoy this style of learning, I invite you to come join me this coming Wednesday and every Wednesday going forward, where we do live webinars on everything related from getting funding, how to find deals, even in a competitive market, how to build a plan till you make $1 million in real estate. How do you house hack? How do you do the BRRRR strategy or rental properties? How do you analyze deals? All that stuff. Every week we talk about a different topic. So biggerpockets.com/webinar. I would love to see you there. I love hanging out and talking about real estate and telling you kind of what I know. So again, you can sign up at biggerpockets.com/webinar. So now, with no further ado, let's get into this. The 7 steps you need to get lenders to fund your real estate deals. All right, so what are we talking about today? Specifically, we're going to talk about why banks say no. We'll talk about 7 steps to hearing a yes. Like, what does it take? What are those 7 steps so that you always get a yes? And then we're going to talk about the 6 C's of a perfect loan proposal. And then we'll talk about some BiggerPockets tools that can help you with that proposal. And so just a few, that's kind of like the 4 main topics today. So hang tight. Now, before we get too deep into this, though, let me tell you a little bit about who we are in case you just came across this video on YouTube or something and you don't know anything about us. BiggerPockets.com is the real estate investing social network, marketplace, and information hub. In other words, we're a social network like Facebook, Twitter, or anything like that, but with less cat videos, less politics, and more real estate success-driven content and community. It's pretty awesome. We're also a marketplace. People buy, sell deals together. They do business. They find partners. They find lenders, all on the social network. And then we're an information hub. Probably what we're best known for, just unbelievably amounts of information for free, like blog posts, webinars. We've got the biggest podcast in the world for real estate. We've got, again, weekly webinars. We've got all sorts of good stuff there. So again, we're an information hub, social network, and a marketplace. All right, now a little bit about me. My name is Brandon Turner. For those of you who do not listen to the BiggerPockets podcast, I have been the co-host now since the beginning. 3 years ago, was it? Maybe even almost more than that. Coming up on 4 years, I think now. Here on the podcast, we've done 190 some episodes up to this date. And I'm also an active real estate investor. I've got a little over 50 units right now, mostly small multifamily properties and some single family houses mixed in there. I'm the author of several books, including the book on investing with no and low money down, and the book on rental property investing, and the book on managing rental properties. You can pick them up at biggerpockets.com/store. And here's where it's important. Here's the important part. I once worked as a personal banker in a major bank, one of the largest banks in the country. I was a personal banker, which means I was at the branch and I would help people get loans. And that's what I did for a living for about a year. Hated that job, but I learned a lot of stuff in there and some kind of like how a banker thinks. How does an underwriter think? How does all that work? And that's what I learned, and that's what I'm teaching you guys today is how did I say yes? Why did I choose to say yes to loans and no to other ones? So I want to ask you this question going to this thing. I think it's important to have this kind of preface. How many deals would you buy if money was not an issue? How many deals would you buy right now? If you could get unlimited funding, how many would you buy? Would you buy one deal a month, one deal a year? Like, what's your goal here? If you could just buy whatever you wanted and you could get funding for all of it, what would you buy? And I ask that because this is the truth, is you can do that. You can actually, you can buy as much as you want if you know how to crack that code. If you know how to crack that code. So that's what we're talking about today. So if you're excited, if you want to buy real estate, if you want to get into this thing or build your portfolio bigger or grow, let's get into that. So first of all, why does a bank say no? Now, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and it's the idea of the combination lock. And when you have that little combination lock, you got to turn it correctly, and only the right combination is going to get them to open it up. And right now, you don't have, if you're hearing no, you haven't cracked the banker's code. You don't know that combination yet. And so that if you can get through that, you're going to hear a yes. So now, this is the not so secret about real estate. Like I said earlier, bankers want to lend money. And so you just have to be able to crack that code. Now, before I go on to the actual 7 steps, let me tell you guys a little bit about how the banks work in terms of lending money. So here's kind of a big picture of how this works. First of all, at a bank, you go and talk to a banker. They are literally nothing but salespeople. Okay, not literally, but they are not much other than salespeople. Their job is to just get applications, get loan applications, and kind of do the paperwork and kind of filter that stuff. The real magic is behind the scenes with the underwriter. The underwriter is somebody whose job is paid to look at all the facts and figures and make it line up with their code, with their set of requirements. And if it lines up, the underwriter then says, yes, we'll approve this. And then you can go ahead and the banker will say, yes, you're approved. But the underwriter is really one you have to convince. So you can tell sob stories to the banker all day long, but if it doesn't meet the underwriter's code, the bank's rules of what they'll lend on, what they won't, then you're not going to get your loan approved. So today we're talking about how do you get that underwriter, even more than the banker, how do you get the underwriter to say yes? And where does the underwriter get their rules from? Well, some of them are just bank policies, but some of them are government rules as well. Some banks use government money to lend out, and some banks lend their own money out. That would be like a conventional loan versus a portfolio loan. But either way, they have rules that you have to abide by. So that's what we're talking about today. So let's get into that. The 7 steps needed to get lenders to fund your real estate deals. Number 1. First question to ask yourself, do you have a deal? Now this might come to a shock to you, but banks don't want to lose money. Banks really don't want to lose money. So do you have a good property that's actually a good deal? Now, how do we know that? Well, first of all, if you're looking at rental properties, does it cash flow? A bank is likely not going to want to lend on an investment property if it doesn't provide any cash flow. Next, loan to value. Loan to value. No, loan to value is basically the amount of your loan divided by the value of the property. The loan amount divided by the value of the property. So for example, let's say the value of a property was $100,000. It was worth $100,000. So your loan to value is whatever your loan amount, let's say $70,000. $70,000 divided by $100,000. That would be a 70% loan to value. Now, every bank has a different loan to value that they will do. Now, one thing, it gets a little bit confusing here, but stick with me. Even though a bank says their loan to value that they'll lend on might be, we'll say 80%. Let's say they'll say, we'll go 80% loan to value. Really what they'll likely do, if you're buying the property, is going to be loan to purchase price and value. Now, what I mean by that is you can't usually go out and find a house that's worth $100,000, get it under contract and buy it for $50,000 and then say, hey, I want you to fund the whole deal. They're going to say, nope, you paid $50, it's worth $50. And then they'll only give you whatever, maybe 70% of that $50. Now, if you're refinancing the property, which means you already owned it and you're just trying to get a brand new loan to pay off the old loan, in that case, then they'll look at the loan to value, the actual value of the property. Now, supposedly the value and the purchase price should be the same, but in all reality, they're not always, but especially when you're hunting for good deals like you and I are doing. So anyway, to go back to that, talk to your banker and ask them, what loan to value do you lend on? You can use that exact phrase. What loan to value will you lend? And they will tell you, oh yeah, 70%, or this loan will go 80%. We'll go 97% on this one. Bank of America has a home loan right now that'll go 97% loan to value. FHA is a 96.5% loan to value. In other words, they are asking you to put in 3.5% down payment. A lot of times refinances on investment properties are 70% to 80% loan to value. A hard money lender typically wants 60% loan to value. So that's an important number to understand what loan to value is. All right, secondly, the first one was what we talked about. How do you have a deal? So is the property a good deal? Do you have equity in it? Actually, before I go on to number 2, let me say this. Let's just say, to give you an example, let's say you found a property that was worth $200,000 and you were able to very intelligently, because you're really good at making good offers and you found a diamond in the rough, you were able to buy it for $120,000. It's going to be a lot easier for you to get a loan on that than it is if you were to find that $200,000 property for $200,000, right? So again, that's why the better deal you have, the lower loan to value ratio, or the more equity you have, the more chance you'll be able to get a loan. But again, that's just a number that you can ask any bank, what loan to value do you do? All right, so number 2, is this a property they'll even lend on? So part of the combination that we're dealing with here is some banks won't lend on certain types of property. Now, I know it may sound obvious, but a lot of people will go to the wrong bank. They'll say, hey, I want to buy this single family house. And the bank might, say after a while, hey, we don't do single family houses. Or, we have a limit of $300,000. We don't do anything below that. Or we have a maximum of $250,000. We don't do anything above that. So you got to make sure that the property itself matches what they lend on. Oh, no, we don't do commercial property. We don't do multifamily. We don't do single family. We don't do whatever. All right, so is the property something that they're going to lend on? So look at property type: single family, multifamily, commercial, mobile home. Property location: some banks won't lend in other areas. Like, hey, I got this property over in, Utah, and I live in Washington. Can you lend on that? No, we don't lend in that location. So talk about where they lend at. Property condition: this is huge. Most banks don't like lending on properties in nasty conditions. They only want to lend on good properties that are in good condition. Now, this can be really hard when, investors like you and I want to go out and find deals. A lot of times those deals are nasty. They smell disgusting. Their carpet's bad. It's been peed on by a million cats, and the cat lady threw up on the carpet and all that weird stuff, right? The bank's not going to want to lend on that property. And so a lot of times what I do is I'll buy a property using like private money. For example, I've met people on BiggerPockets who I've built relationships with. They'll lend the money on the purchase, then I'll fix the property up, then I'll go and refinance it with a bank later on. Now that's where that loan to value comes in handy. Let me give you an example. So I bought a property that I paid $70,000 for it. I didn't have the money for it, the 70 grand, and no bank would have given me a loan because it was in too crappy condition. So I borrowed $70,000 plus actually another 15 or so for rehab from another BiggerPockets member, from somebody I met on the site that we built a relationship with. So he funded that whole entire deal. Then I went to the bank later and got it appraised. It appraised for almost $150,000. Well, guess what? The bank told me they'll give me 70% of the loan to value. So I took 70% of 150,000, and that was what, 105? Does that sound right? 150, yeah, 105. So they gave me a loan for a little over 100. It was like 103, I think, is what my loan ended up being. And I got back the entire private lender's money. I paid them back completely. I got my own money back. I put in a little bit for repairs on it. I got all that back. And now I had a nice long 30-year fixed mortgage because they did a 70% loan to value on a nice property. So again, property type, property location, property condition, and then loan amount. Loan amounts such as, some banks, like I said earlier, they won't lend anything more than $250 or under $250 or over $1 million or under $1 million. Every bank's got their loan amount, what they want to do. What I run into a lot of times is banks, because I live in a lower value area. A lot of times I go to a bank and I want to lend on this $40,000 deal, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't do anything that low, because it's just not worth it for the bank to get involved in these $40,000 or $30,000 deals. For those kind of things, typically small local community banks are easier. Like, I'm not going to go to the big, huge banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, US Bank, to get a $25,000 mortgage. It's just not worth it for them. They probably won't do it. Maybe they will, but probably not. Instead, I'm going to go to like a local community bank that maybe has a half dozen branches. All right, moving on to number 3. So we talked about the property itself, but now let's talk about you. Number 3, are you a solid bet? Because yes, I know the bank only, like they care about the property and they want to make sure the property is going to support itself and that you're not whatever. But ultimately, you're the kind of person that they're lending the money to you as a person. So are you a solid bet? So do you have good income or the ability to repay that loan? Now, if you're buying a big multifamily property like an apartment complex that's, millions of dollars, you can't personally repay that every month because you don't have the money. So they're going to say, does the property make enough income, and do you have enough experience to manage that property? But they're going to want to know, make sure that there's good income. Next, debt to income. This is another one of those ratios, right? So we're going to do a little math here. Debt to income. Anytime you see that 2, it means like draw a slash there. So debt divided by income. So if your total monthly debt right now, if your total monthly debt, we'll say was like your monthly minimum payments was $5,000 a month. That's what all your loan payments are combined. And you make $10,000 a month. That's 5,000 divided by 10,000 is 50%. Your debt to income ratio is 50%. Now, most banks they usually have a number here, like 42%, 50%, 53%, whatever. They have a number that they care about for your debt to income, and they don't want it to be higher than that. This is especially true when buying your own primary residence, your own house. Usually, they don't want you to go over a certain percentage for that debt to income. Third, experience. What kind of experience do you have? Again, if you're buying a single family house, maybe for yourself to live in, this might not be as big of a deal. If you're buying an investment property, they might care a little more. Have you been a landlord before? If you've never been a landlord, they might not let you apply any of the income you're getting from the property until you've been a landlord for a couple of years, which is a really, really, really good reason why you should just go out and be a landlord now. Like, buy something that's a landlord, so at least 2 years from now, you'll have that experience that you can then put on the books. But what's your experience look like? Next, credit score. Most banks have a minimum credit score. If you got a 600 and they want 620, they'll just deny you because you don't meet their credit score requirement. And recent credit changes. You want, when I worked at the bank, I used to approve loans for people or deny them, right? So let's say I was going to issue a $40,000 home equity line of credit. They come in the day to go get it, and all of a sudden the underwriter's freaking out because the day before, that person went and spent 30 grand on furniture, or they bought a new car because they were all excited about getting their loan. And that just actually destroyed their chance of getting the loan. That would happen because recent credit changes can hurt your ability. So if you're going to get a loan, don't go and get a bunch of new debt. All right, number 4, will the bank feel secure? Is the bank going to feel secure? In other words, if something went wrong, are they going to be okay? So first of all, do you have cash reserves? Most banks want to see you have at least 6 months of pity payments, which is your principal and interest payment every month, which is like your mortgage payment, your taxes and insurance, pity, P-I-T-I. They want to see 6 months of that. So if your mortgage payment and taxes and insurance is $500 a month for your property, they want to see you have $3 grand for that property. If it's $1,000 a month, they want you to have $6 grand just in reserves. That's kind of just a rule of thumb, but most banks like that. Secondly, the bank wants to make sure they have collateral. In other words, if they were forced to take the property back, if you didn't pay your bills and they had to come take the property, are they going to have collateral? That kind of ties in earlier what we talked about with the equity, and they want to make sure that you have a loan to value that works for them. The reason they have that is because they want to make sure they have collateral. So they're going to make you pledge the property, usually when you're getting a loan. All right, moving on to number 5. How professional are you? Like how do you present yourself? Not just how you look. I'm saying but how do you present the deal? And but we'll go to the deal later actually. So first of all, how do you talk? How do you approach them? Imagine this. Imagine you walk in nasty clothes and you go up to the banker and be like, "Yeah, I want to get a loan, man. Can I get a loan?" Of course they're not going to. They're going to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're actually out of money. Sorry. Try next door." Right? So how do you talk? How do you present yourself? How do you look? When you walk in there, are you clear and confident? How do you communicate? Do you have your knowledge? Like, do you know what you're doing? Or are you just in there shy? Like, I don't know. Because ultimately the banker's a busy guy. They got a lot of deals that they can fund. They don't want to deal with people if they assume the person's an idiot and isn't going to be able to do the deal. They don't want to waste time with you. But the more confident you are, the more they'll want to waste time with you. All right, number 6. How about your loan proposal? So we talked about you. How are you look? But what about your loan proposal? Like, is it professional? The way you present the deal itself. So to talk about that, I put together something called the 6 C's of a loan, of the perfect loan. That's a weird phrase there. The 6 C's of the perfect loan presentation. The 6 C's of the perfect loan presentation. So number 1, your loan presentation, when you apply for a loan, you need to apply with confidence, meaning you need to know your numbers like the back of your hand. Yeah, Mr. Banker, this property, I'm going to be buying it for $175,000. This property will produce exactly $4,555 a month in cash flow. I expect to have $40,000 in equity, and my loan to value will be 63%. Now, that is a confident person, right? Because they know their numbers, are confident in what they're doing. Secondly, clarity. Is it clear? Like, have you presented, like, instead of handing them a stack of papers and saying, here you go, I think it's a good deal, but I don't know, it's in there somewhere. You got to be clear about it. So I always put together like a one-page summary of what I'm doing. Very clear. This is what the property is. This is what the numbers are. This is what I need from you. Very clear. 3, concise. Like I said, I usually put a one-page like summary on the front, and then I put a little packet that's very easy to flip through, even with little like what are they called? Little I don't know, folder dividers or whatever to help. But it's concise. I make it I don't give them a stack of a box of junk paper to look through. And, I think my tax returns are in here somewhere. I don't know. We'll tell them to put all our stuff in this big box once every decade and you can dig through it, right? That's not concise. You got to give them something concise. I don't know who Thelma is. All right. Convenient. Is it convenient? Do you have convenience in how you present it? In other words, are you going to make them dig through lots of information, or are you going to make it really convenient and give them exactly what they need? When they ask for something, do you give it to them right away? When they ask you to fill out a loan application, do you fill it out fully so they don't have to track you down later? I would say actually the reason, probably the number one reason banks get denied is probably lack of convenience. Bankers are lazy. They would rather go with the most easy loans they can, and they're going to ignore and deny the ones that are not convenient. So the more convenient you can make it for the banker, the better. Number 5, creativity. Do you have a little bit of creativity in how you put the deal together? Now, this is kind of a bonus item here, but the more creative you can make your presentation, the better. Like, look what I said. Last time I did, or maybe not last time, but one of the recent times I got a loan, I went into Staples and got one of those paper binder holders. It's like a clear cover and you can put papers inside of it and it makes it look really nice, like a presentation. I got one of those. I put the one page on the front of it, and then I put little dividers in between with little folder things, and it was all so nice and very creative, and it made it so easy for the person. It stood out of all the other loans that they were working on. It really stood out, and so it was very creative, and I ended up getting 2 loans approved that day, one for my 5-plex and one for my 24-unit property. And lastly, complete. I just added this one. It used to be the 5 C's of a perfect loan. Now it's 6. But number 6, complete. In other words, are you leaving stuff out? Are you hiding stuff? Are you making it difficult for the banker to get all the information you need? Be really, really thorough on how you give them information. Be very complete so they don't have to ask you again and again and again. Again, the main reason that people don't get their loans approved is because bankers are lazy. So if you want to make it as easy as possible, give them all the information they need. Now, if you do everything we just talked about, all the debt to income, you crack their code and you present it well with these 6 C's, you're going to have a much better time. Now, I will say this, you guys, if you want to know more about kind of my process for the 5 C's, because again, it used to be 5. I just didn't have complete in there. But you can download this free ebook that I put together. There's no opt-in or anything. It's just a free gift just for coming to this video or watching this video. Go to BiggerPockets.com/5CS. BiggerPockets.com/5CS. The number 5, the letter C is in cookie, and the S is in Sam. So just a free little gift for you there. Now, one way that you can do this, and I want to mention this, is using the BiggerPockets analysis calculators. The BiggerPockets analysis calculators. What we have is a BRRRR calculator for doing buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat properties, BRRRR. We've got a rental property calculator. We've got a wholesaling calculator and a fix and flip calculator. Now, the reason these are so powerful is because not just the numbers. The numbers help a lot. I mean, we'll walk through a deal here right now. I'll kind of show you what it does. But specifically, it's helpful because you can present it on a one-page PDF that gives you a nice summary of all the numbers. It makes it very confident, clear, concise, convenient, creative, and complete. And that's why as we put together these calculators, we designed them to match all of these 6 C's. We made them to be exactly what a banker would want to see. So let me go ahead and pull up kind of what we're looking at here. So let's go ahead and do that together. I'm going to go ahead and start an analysis, and we'll go find us a deal to analyze. So, we can do a fix and flip. We can do a rental property. We can do a BRRRR, a wholesale. Why don't we do a rental property here today? So I'm going to flash over here to Realtor.com. Now, there's a lot of places you can go to look for deals. This is just one place, so we're going to start here. And now, don't be shocked by the prices. I'm listing them lowest to highest. So we could go, the highest price houses in my area, which are about $750,000 or $450,000, or we can go lowest. Let's go to the cheap ones, just for the fun of it. In fact, actually, why don't we go over to multifamily? That might be fun. We'll go like that and look for all the multifamilies in my area. So here's some let's try that again. Multifamily. See if it reloads. There we go. All right, so here's some properties here. That looks like something over on State Street, something over on H Street. Not a big fan of that neighborhood. This one looks maybe a decent neighborhood. West Market's all right. D Street, it's okay. North F again, not a big fan of F. East Market, not great. This one might be decent. This property right here could be something worth analyzing maybe. I actually put an offer on this one just recently. So why don't we go ahead together and just for the heck of it, why don't we look at this property right here? Nah, that's going to be too much. I can just tell it's going to be way too much. I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and do this one then. This is an excellent cash-on-cash return investment, 6-plex, some updating done. All units have a nice city view. Unit consists of 5 large one-bedrooms and 1 studio and a coin-op laundry. Property has been well-maintained. Solid rental history with consistent positive cash flow. Well, we'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this property together over here. So the address of this one was 210 East 5th Street. Let's see, 6-plex. That's what we're going to call it. Now, let me explain real quick how this works. The calculator is really simple. It's actually just 3 pages, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go through and enter everything. I'm not going to explain every single bit of how I'm doing this because we don't have a lot of time here. So I'm going to kind of rush through it and show you how fast these actually can be done. So let's go ahead and put a property address of East 5th, City of Aberdeen, Washington. Property taxes, if you want to find that out, you can look at your county records. You can also look at these little question mark things, hover over it, and they'll teach you how to find each item as you go through the calculator. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and look on here. Taxes should be listed somewhere here on Realtor.com's page, and if not, doesn't look like it is. That's okay. So we're going to go over to the county records, Grays Harbor County Assessor's page, and I'm going to go ahead and actually just look it up. So 210 East 5th. Here's our property right here. It's owned by Richard. Tax information. Looks like taxes were $22.60 this year. But last year they were $24. They went down. Interesting. But he's happy about that. So I'm going to pump that in there. MLS number, if I want to put that in, I don't have to. Property picture. I want to do that. Let's do that. Let's go take a quick picture of this. And we'll go ahead and drag that in from here. Sales description. I usually just like to use whatever the realtor wrote. That usually works for me. And that's it for page 1. Everyone feeling comfortable with this? So then we go to page 2. How much are we purchasing it for? Well, they're asking $162. I don't want to pay full price. What if I offered them $150? $150,000. What's it worth when it's fixed up? Probably about what they're asking. It doesn't need much work, it looks like. To buy the thing, it's going to cost you some closing costs. Again, if you want to know how to do any of these fields, you can just hover over the question marks and we teach you. I don't think it needs a lot of work, but maybe we'll put in $10,000 because there's always something on these properties. Now, when I buy the property, what do I want to do? I want to probably put a down payment down. So why don't we do a, 25% down payment? We'll try that out at maybe 5%. I'm not going to worry about this stuff right now. I'm just trying to get through this. Amortized over a 30-year, we'll go 25-year mortgage on a property like this. That's it for page 2. Now page 3, how much are we going to rent this for? Well, unit A, we could look here and see if they tell us the information. They probably won't. And if they don't, we have a few options. We can another 1-bedroom, so we can look up. What I would typically do is go to Craigslist and find out what similar properties are. I just know in this area, 1-bedroom is going to go for about $500. So unit A, B, C, and D, and E are all 500. I'm going to say, and F is a studio. They said so. 500, 500, 500. Now I could have just put one big number in here, but I want to make it look a little prettier at the end. And the studio is probably 450. So that's typical for this area. And then we got down below that, other income. They did say there was a laundry machine. We don't know how much that is, but let's just guess $75 a month right now. We can adjust that later. And then we got, what are our expenses? Now, the tenants typically pay their own electricity, but there's probably some hall lighting or something like that. So I'll save $75 for that. Water, sewer, and garbage, I got to pay for that. In this area, probably looking at about $200 a month for that. If you don't know, you can hover over the question mark here and it teaches you, but you can hover or talk to any of those companies, like talk to the water department, talk to the sewer department if they're separate. If I have PMI, which if you don't know what that is, hover over it. Garbage, I'm going to guess probably around $100 a month for this place. Insurance, I'll probably be about $150 a month on here. I don't think I'll have any other, maybe lawn care. I'm gonna have to take care of lawn care. So maybe on average, I'm probably averaging around $50 a month for that. And then we got vacancy rate, probably sitting about 5%. Repairs and maintenance and CapEx, I usually do about, between 5, I'll do 5% each. 151 for maintenance, 151 for capital expenditures. These are big ticket items like refrigerators, stuff like that. And if you don't know, hover over, we teach you more all about it. I'm not gonna manage it myself. I'm gonna hire a property manager for about 10% of the rent. I might be able to get that actually down to about 9%. And then what do I think the future is going to do? I can leave these all blank if I want, but I'm just going to go ahead and say 2% income growth, 2% property value, 2% expense growth. And when I sell the property someday, I'll pay about 9% in fees. And that's it. So total, this takes about 3, 4, 5 minutes to do. Definitely under 5 minutes, you can analyze a deal. At least get a pretty general number. Now, of course, today we're talking about how to get a loan approved. Now, I think this is important because we talked about in order to get a loan approved, you got to have a good deal. Now, at these numbers, this actually looks like a kind of a decent deal. Look at what we're looking at. $800 a month in cash flow on a sixplex. That's $150 per unit, over that per unit. Cash on cash return of 20% cash on cash return on this property. That doesn't seem too bad, right? So if these numbers are legit, now, this is just definitely something I'm interested in. I might go pursue this, put an offer in if these numbers are true. I'm going to go verify all of these later. But just looking at it, I can go down and see how much cash I'm going to need. So anyway, the point is, I got now my numbers. I got graphs, charts, and all this. So we talked about presenting the 6 C's, when you're presenting a deal. If you go down here to more actions, you can actually download a PDF report. It takes just a second, so I'll just click over here and explain while it's waiting. It takes about 10 seconds to generate. But in here, I can see all these things like income. Here's my income. Here's my expenses. Here's what the 50% rule says about this property. In fact, 50% rule is pretty darn close to what our estimate is for the cash flow. Kind of cool to see that. Down below, I can see what the future 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30 years out might look like. I can look at some graphs and see my equity growing over time. Now, do you think a banker would appreciate seeing this? Heck yes. So here's what the report actually looks like here. So this is a PDF report. I can print this out, and I do. I use these all the time. Whenever I'm doing a loan, whenever I'm presenting a loan, refinance or purchase to a lender, I always give them this. Whether it's a hard money lender, a bank, anybody, I'm always giving them these. So check this out. It tells me all the pertinent information, all the information the banker wants to know. Income, expenses, cash flow, our cap rates, our cash on cash return, how much cash we're going to need. This tells the banker that you know what you're doing. It gives them all the numbers they want in a nice, pretty format. You've got graphs, you've got all the numbers that they care about. Down below, we can see the financial projections here. We can see what the 50% rule is going to tell us. We can see the analysis over time. Again, the bank now feels you are confident in your numbers because you walk in with this versus something else. You got a map on here. I can even put in, if I wanted, I can upload more photos. I can put a ton of photos. I don't know how many, I think 20 or 30 photos you can add to this if you want to. So what I typically would do when I'm going to present the deal to a lender is I'll fill out their loan application, but I'll put this on top of it. And I'll say, here's a deal I'm trying to put together. What do you think? So that is kind of why I pursue that kind of, I guess why I do the numbers here every single time. Now, if you're interested in using these calculators, they are free for the first 5 times you use them. So if you're a new BiggerPockets member, go on, try them out, play with it, see what you think. If you want to use them unlimited, you do have to be a BiggerPockets Pro member. And of course, if you're not one, we can hook you up with one. BiggerPockets.com/pro. You can learn all about that. So anyway, let's get back to our slides here. We're talking about the BiggerPockets calculator. We talked about that because we're talking about how to do the confidence, clarity, concise, convenient, creativity, and complete. That's what these reports will help you do. So now we got moving on to number 7. We got to hit number 7 here of our 7 steps. If at first you don't succeed, try again, right? So you can try another bank because not all banks are the same. In fact, I just interviewed a guy today on our BiggerPockets podcast. Comes out here next week, I think. It's episode number 197. That guy's story is just over and over and over persistence, trying more and more banks. Trying one bank, they turn him down. Trying another bank, they turn him down. Another bank, turn him down. Another bank. After like 7, 8, 9 banks, he got a yes. So you can try that as well. Every bank's got different rules, different combinations, so you can try different ones. You can also try portfolio lenders. These are bankers that lend their own money, not the government's money. Or maybe they do both, but the loan, it's a portfolio loan. So usually these are small local community banks. Definitely look for that. Also, you can ask for referrals from people, from other lenders who are getting those kind of loans done. So, hey, where'd you get your loan at? I'm having trouble getting a loan, getting a yes. Find out who's easy to work with. Remember I said earlier, bankers tend to be lazy. So yes, you got to crack the code, but you have to impress your banker enough to make them actually want to do the work. So if you're working with a crappy banker, even if you get the code right, you're going to have a problem. So ask for referrals of good bankers. If you cannot get a loan for whatever reason because the combination doesn't work out right, you're not all is lost. There's still a lot of options. In fact, I wrote an entire book on it. It's called The Book on Investing in Real Estate with No and Low Money Down. It's all about creative finance. So if you want to know how to put together deals without that, check out that book. You can get it at biggerpockets.com/store. Or let me just explain a few ways. You could use like seller financing. That's how I bought my 24-unit apartment complex when nobody would give me a loan because I didn't have the personal experience to be able to handle a big loan like that. I didn't have the income. I didn't have any of that stuff. I used seller financing. There's lease options. There's there's home equity lines of credit. You can use a partner, all those things. Yeah, partner here. There's a lot of things you can do. The point is, if you really want it bad enough, if you got a good enough deal, if you've worked through all those 7 steps, you can get your loan approved, especially if you get that combination figured out. So guys, that's all I got for you today. That is this video on the 7 steps needed to get lenders to fund your real estate deals. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed learning. You learned something good about it. If you did, do me a quick favor. Give me a thumbs up on this YouTube video. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up because it makes me feel good and it lets YouTube know that this is a valuable video and they can show it to more people. If you have any questions, jump in the BiggerPockets forums anytime. There are people so much more intelligent and so much more experienced than I will ever hope to be there in the forums, hanging out, volunteering their time to answer questions. And it's totally free, 100% free to jump into the forums and just ask questions. So biggerpockets.com/forums. And lastly, if you enjoyed learning here on this video, we do this every week on BiggerPockets Live. We do these live videos. Webinars. You can sign up at biggerpockets.com/webinar, and we cover all sorts of different topics, everything from creative finance to putting together deals, rentals, flips, wholesalers, everything. If you want to learn more about specific topics, make sure you show up next week and every week. You can sign up for next week's at biggerpockets.com/webinar. All right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this video and hanging out here. I hope you learned a lot. I will see you around the BiggerPockets community. For BiggerPockets.com, my name is Brandon, signing off.